Really. So I would like to welcome you to this first session of this afternoon, ICT4Green. As you know, digital technology is expected to play a very important role in the green transition. And there are many experts who consider that the green transition will be a twin green digital transition or will be very difficult to implement. Hence the importance of the role of ICT in the green transition. So we have today for 90 minutes a very interesting panel that will discuss the topic. But before the panel, I would like to invite Mr. Wang to deliver a keynote speech. You have the floor, Mr. Wang.
Yes, thank you, Doctor. It will be there? Okay. Hello, everyone. Dear friends, dear partners, good afternoon. It's my great honor to be here to speak with you in this beautiful city of Emtairah in Egypt. My name is Philippe Wang, the Vice Executive President for Northern Africa region of Huawei Group. Today, we are gathered here because of fighting against the climate change. It's the most important priority of our time. And I think more than that, people need to reconsider its relations with nature and accelerate the ecological transformation and the green growth models. And 6 years after the Marrakesh COP22, Africa has become a key partner in the energy transition by putting this topic in the heart of the discussion about the social and the economic development for this continent and over the world. Today, I would like to talk about some of the innovations taking place in ICT domain. These innovations are making ICT and other industry greener, laying the groundwork for more sustainable living in this century. As we all know, digital economy has become the new engine of economic development, especially through the pandemic for the last 3 years. Nearly every industry now depends on the ICT technologies to accelerate the digital transformation to create more service for the people daily life. As for consumer, more device has been purchased and more data exchange, online learning, video communication, video teleconsultation. This kind of service, new service, is changing our daily life, and the possibility of the digital seems endless. But in the same time, with the booming of digital economic, we can see more data was created, and in the same time, more power consumption is demanded. This increase a lot for the traffic in the network to fulfill our daily needs. So as a result, the power consumption and the carbon emission increased a lot in the same time. The question is here, how to find the balance? One side is economic development for our needs, and the other side with a sustainable model. And while we here, we think the key points will be to how to measure this carbon emission. It will be very fundamental. It's indispensable. Without a measurement, no adjustment can be made and no progress can be anticipated and achieved. So, in this regard, while we work with our partners, with numbers of ITUT to offer a standard for network energy use measurement, I'm delighted to share with you that ITUT has approved the network carbon intensity energy standard We call it NCIE. This is a uniform measure to promote the development of the green ICT industry. This standard has been published on 19th October for this year. This standard can measure the energy efficiency of network infrastructure based on carbon emission per unit of the data traffic. This is a new way to measure and what is the impact for the development of digital economic with a common recognized standard. So I'm proud to just share, based on this NCIE standard, some of the innovation solutions that Huawei has already developed for the green transition, for the site, for the network, for the operations, can one side significantly to increase the capacity of network, but in the same time, reduce the energy consumption per bit. For example, think about a cell phone tower, we call it a base station. By using ICT technology invented by Huawei, the street light can be turned it off by itself when there's nobody around. And for 5G base station, the base station can automatically shut down when there's no traffic. So this is an intelligent way to save the energy using. And definitely, this is the right way, we believe. And in the same time, the base station has antennas. Last year, Huawei launched a green 5G antennas. It covers area more than 500 meters in distance, but only using the half transmission energy. Based on the NCIE standards, some antennas, together with our latest technology, we call it SDIF, signal direct injection feeding technology, and the innovative algorithms can reduce energy consumption by 30%, but do not forget, by using 5 technology, the capacity of network can increase 30 times in the same time. One side we can save the consumption, another side we can increase the network capacity. So this is a very significantly contribution. In addition, we are not only consider the base station as well, we have the vision for the whole infrastructure network. For example, in Ethiopia, Huawei has deployed more than 400 base stations powered by solar energy solution. These solar sites are can already save more than 12 million liters of diesel fuel per year, reducing annual carbon emission by 2,850 tons of CO2. That's a clear resource of electric power. So we already looked how IT can reduce its own network carbon emission. But more than that, by using ICT technologies, we can make other industry greener as well. This is known as the enabling effect for the other industry. For example, 5G, AI, data analytics, cloud computing, all these solutions will improve industry processes. In a way, cut the energy use and lower carbon emissions. In the past, the company were merely seen as a resource of these emissions. The company, they're working a lot to mitigate the harmful impact for their business image. Nowadays, thanks to the development of ICT technology, our perspective has changed and has evolved. Increasingly, companies are now being viewed as contributing for this positive change to protect our climate. So, for instance, in agricultural domain, the tractors with sensor, equipped with sensor, can move cross field almost autonomously. By precising the routing of the tractor's path, can reduce fuel using in average around 17%. Meanwhile, sensor can reduce as well pesticide use by up to 80%. So this is another way very significantly to protect our environment by using ICT technology. The enabling effect holds out the promise of real change in these coming years. In a 2008 report published by Global Enabling Sustainability Initiative, GC, he said McKinsey and ICT technology can reduce in average 5.5 times more carbon than it emits. And for the follow-up reported by Accenture, these figures already approved by 10 times. The contribution can be done by ICT technologies than itself will be emits. So according to this report of GC, ICT have the potential to reduce global CO2 emission at least by 20% by 2030. And you can learn more in this latest edition of our magazine, Transform. You can see here. This magazine is a sort of the leadership magazine of Huawei, launched early this year, and this one is printed in Egypt by recycled paper. And you can see, here is the cover story. This is an interview with Mr. Louis Neves. Now he's online joining our panel discussion. One sentence said by him is very significant. It's very brilliant. It means he considers ICT is an atomic bomb for sustainability. He says that this can definitely blast away the obstacle for us to block the path to the greener future. So I think that means in the same time we can make the cake and we can eat it. So in our industry we can develop one side of the digital economic and another side by reducing to protect our environment. According to an economist for Yale University, he said we can have a 19th century carbon footprint, but by using 21st century living style. So we can enjoy the fruit of development while we can living on a greener, clearer, more sustainable planet, thanks to using ICT technology. That's why we believe that a digital economy is green economy and will bring a greener future together for us. But here I want to emphasize that a greener future cannot be reached without the two fundamental factors, the collaboration and the education. Firstly, the collaboration brings more possibility for solutions. Therefore, we remain committed to cooperate with all our customers, partners, and suppliers to promote a business ecosystem that thrives on shared success and reduce the carbon emissions, supported environmental protection, and promotes greater sustainability. But secondly, I think for education, it's most important. We believe by training young people to give them the digital skills is the cornerstone of sustainability world and the sustainability development model and the engine of the digital economy's development. And this is why at Huawei Group we launched a lot of programs across the world, especially in Africa. For example, the ICT Academy, we cooperate with different universities and sees for the future this program for the brilliant candidate in this ICT domain and the Tech for All programs to build a strong digital talent ecosystem. For example, in Egypt, we worked together with the government by launching ITB, the ICT Talent Bank program, conjointly with the government, which is dedicated to cultivating ICT talents for this country. The benefits of ICT must be accessible to everyone and everywhere. This is our philosophy. So I'd like to conclude by saying that ICT will enable the digitalization of industry, spark innovations, and make nearly every industry greener. And this is a secret weapon for sustainability development. But I don't think it will remain a long time, because today we are disclosing all these secrets. Working with our partner, Huawei will strive to accelerate the global energy transition and develop clear energy infrastructure to help meet net zero goals. By enabling power of ICT, I'm confident that together we can work towards a cleaner, greener, and a bright future. Thank you for you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Philippe Wang. And thank you, Huawei, for your promotion of an ICT Green and an ICT4Green. Thank you. Now I will invite our panelists to join the podium. So we have some of our panelists physically here, and others are joining virtually. So our panelists are Mr. Tareq Emtairah. Please join the podium. Mr. Paolo Gemma. Please, Paolo, join the podium. Mr. Ibrahim Adam al-Dukheiri. Please join the podium. Mr. Dennis Pamlin. Mr. Philippe Wang. And Mrs. Kaoru Inoue. Yeah, you can. Maybe you can. Yeah. You want to go ahead? Oh, yeah. Come. Yeah. Or later. Okay. Oh, you can. So we have also panelists that are joining remotely. So we have Mrs. Nompilo Morafo. And then we have Mr. Willem Jonker, Mr. Liu Neves, and Mr. Ilyas Yakovidos. So thank you all for being part of this panel on ICT4Green. So there are some topics I would like us to cover into this dialogue. So some broad topic. The first one is why the twin green digital transition? Why the green transition is always associated with digital. And then if we want to move digital technology from a laboratory and bring them to support people and the planet, what are the constraints that need to be addressed? We don't want anybody to be left behind. We would like digital technology to serve all types of communities. What could be done to ensure that the transition is an inclusive transition? Radical collaboration will be needed. I think it was said this morning, non-entity individually or non-country individually will be able to address the big challenge of the green digital transition. Collaboration will be needed, radical collaboration will be needed. What can be done to facilitate and promote this radical collaboration? Standard is one of the leverage points. Standard is a key policy instrument that can help action take place. So what is the role of standard and how this standard should be designed so that they can serve digital for planet and people? And finally, how do we best use digital to serve policies? And how do we use digital for hard-to-abate industries? So what I will do first, I will give the floor to all the panelists and invite you to introduce yourself and then to share some reflection on these 7 topics that I have mentioned. You pick the topic that you are more interested to focus in, and then you can share your initial insight on this topic before we start a round of questions. Maybe starting with those that are joining remotely. First question will be directed to Mrs. Nompilo Morafo. Please, can you introduce yourself and share with us some reflection on these different topics that I have just mentioned?
Good afternoon, and thank you, Program Director, for allowing us to join virtually. My name is Nompilo Morafo. I'm joining from Johannesburg. I represent MTN, which is a Pan-African organization that operates across 17 markets in Africa. So as a reflection on the topic itself, we as MTN, we believe that everyone deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. So I'm starting with that because so that you understand with the strategy that we're employing around connectivity is that one of having no one left behind. So with the questions that you've posed and the reflection that you're posing to us as a panel, that requires a deep reflection from companies of our size to actually reflect on how we're going to make sure that people are not only connected, but they remain also climate resilient to all the challenges that we're facing across the continent. So my interest is really around connectivity and ensuring that we balance that with climate action at the same time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Nompilo. The next speaker is Willem Jonker. Mr. Willem, can you share with us your reflection on this question? And please introduce yourself first.
Thanks very much for inviting me to this panel. Unfortunately, due to other obligations back in Europe, I cannot physically attend, but I'm very grateful that I get the opportunity to remotely participate. I want to share a few thoughts in the presentation with you. It's about a report we published exactly on this topic. How can digital technology help the green economy? And it's a report that was built by my organization EIT Digital, which is a part of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. If we can go to the next slide, you see that EIT Digital is building a European digital ecosystem for a strong, inclusive, fair and sustainable digital world. We're focusing on several topics, and I will come to that. And if we go to the next slide, we can see that this ecosystem works on digital talent and skills, and also on venture creation and scaling. And if we go to the next slide, it gives you a bit of an impression of what kind of offers the organization has. On the next slide. Yes, so this is an example of one of our education offerings, a true integrated entrepreneurial digital talent master program with several tracks and executed all across Europe. What we also do, that you find on the next slide, is building the European digital champions. We have delivered several of them, and we have a whole portfolio of 200 ventures that we support. And then I slowly move to the topic of today, because one of the areas where we are active, you see on the next slide, and that is smart cities. And you see a couple of examples where we work on making cities more accessible, but also more climate friendly when it comes to logistics. and transport in the city. And actually on the next slide you see a current challenge that we are running together with our sister organization, the Climate Kick. And here you see the merger of climate and digital. So green, digital, really together, teaming up to work on more green cities. The call is open. You can still submit till November 20th. And then I go to the next slide where you see where we publish reports that address important developments that are going on. And one of these reports, which you see on the next slide, is the report on the green economy and how digital technology can help. And actually the question, of course, is can this accelerated digital transformation help to reduce the non-green energy use, or will we see the other things around? Will we see rebounds and substitution effects where digital has a contrary effect? The way we work in these reports, you see in the next slide, we look at the main taxonomy of effects. So digital technology's own energy consumption, digitally driven substitution, which reduces energy consumption, digital technology's effect on energy as efficiency, but also rebounds, which of course mean that saving in one place of the economy boosts other part of the economy. Some digital platforms unfortunately contribute to that as well. And then we have behavioral effects that can be achieved by using digital technologies. If you go further on the next slide, you see that the report is a scenario-based report, which looks at economy-wide energy efficiency on the one axis and the efficiency use of digital technology. And then of course you get 4 quadrants. You can read it in the report that is downloadable. But of course utopia is where you have a high economy-wide efficiency combined with very efficient digital technology in itself. If we go to the next slide, you see how these different scenarios impact certain parameters of the economy. And of course, we are about energy innovation, we're about energy consumption, energy transition and innovation, but we're also about growth and social cohesion. And you see that, for example, the utopia scenario does very good in the lower part, but of course has a price in terms of economic growth and the speed of the economic growth. If we go to the next slide, you see the main conclusions from the report. An important thing I want to put on the table is a lack of an agreed framework of measuring and modeling digital impact on energy and as a result on green. Also, when it comes to the area of energy consumption of digital technology itself, on the one hand, data centers are enormous energy consumers. At the same time, the total consumption of digital technology is still less than 10% of the total energy consumption. Of course, you should work on it, but you should also realize that the main gain is more from applying digital technology elsewhere than really focusing only on digital technology itself. What is important is that the effect is very diverse across economic sectors, and the report explains why and gives examples. And in specific sectors, you have possible rebound effects. You apply digital technology, but the effect is that you will even get more energy consumption. And for example, platforms that allow you to book flights easily, to book hotels easily in remote areas, and then lead to traveling there to spend your holidays very remote, have a rebound effect that maybe you have an efficient way of booking your facilities, but once you're going to use them, you have an enormous boost in your energy consumption. This is my first intro contribution, and I'm looking forward to a good dialogue. Thank you.
Willem, I would like to follow up with you on one question before I move to Ilyas. Did you have the opportunity to look at how digital technology can also support one of the most transformative type of climate action, which is to make redundant some product? So for example, when digital technology is used in the design of city to make them more compact and more complete, so that cities need less car or when digital technology is used to reduce the need for mobility. For example, by replacing trip to the municipality with access to municipality services online.
Yeah, well, there are different angles to it. I will keep it very brief. On the one hand, of course, there is indeed using digital technology, and some countries are very advanced to avoid physical travel, especially when it's government interaction, when you get a passport or a driver's license and so on. If you can do that online, of course, that is one part of it. The other part of it is using digital twins of city behavior, and that has to do with the city design. We also involved in the so-called Neubauhaus project, which is a new initiative of the European Commission to make cities more accessible, and the layout of the city determines very much how you travel through the city. And then, of course, there is also which means of transportation, and that has very much to do with the planning and the layout of the public transport, all kind of shared services that you can deploy in cities and so on. So there are many different angles on it. In the presentation, I showed a couple of startups that are working on those different things, and our new challenge that I just presented is also calling for possible solutions there that we will financially support and hope to get them to grow.
Thank you, Willem. And now I would like to move to Ilyas. So, Ilyas, you heard this 7 area where we would like to focus the discussion. What are your insights about this 7 area?
Yes, so thank you for the invitation. I would select 2 areas as examples to apply this ICT, and that one is energy, so building on what Willem said, and one is circular economy. On the energy part, we know that especially in Europe, we have a fear of a blackout because there is an energy problem. That blackout, if it happens, will keep houses of people for 3 days without electricity. It's not a joke, it's real, and we need to make sure that this doesn't happen. How it cannot happen? I mean, what are the means for that not to happen? If we had better prepared, so beyond the energy policies, there are fast measures through digital means that can make the peak monitoring and the reductions and prevention happen. And that's a digitalization not only of your homes, where within a week, you can achieve 15%. And 15% when your bills are hundreds and hundreds of euros per month is a lot of money. 15% you can achieve today just buying something that costs less than 1,000 euro. What I'm talking more about is the digitalization of the factories and the central energy provisions, where when they see this peak coming up, there can be online betting of who would shut down and be paid to just stop maybe one big furnace to avoid blackouts. This type of digitalization and situational awareness is possible. There are already means to do it. It needs political will. Same as helping people to advance their home renovations. Instead of just working on physical isolations and windows and doors, to promote as well the digitalization of homes and big office buildings that I'm now in, which I'm sure is not the perfect, although it's very new. So the energy sector, and looking at how we move from decentralized energy provisions to kind of integrated multi-prosumers, as we call them, because there will be many inputs and outputs coming in, that digitalization has a huge impact and a huge savings and prevention from energy deprivation of people's shelters. Because energy, it's really one of the basic needs of people that we need to protect. And we need to completely redesign and kind of digitalize the energy systems. The second part, and for that, if you think what are the challenges, it's data access. The original stakeholders don't want to let go. So the energy companies wanted to put all these smart meters. We need actually open data space for people and smartness and innovation to happen. Other one is a standardized data, so we can actually, the interoperability of the data between the different stakeholders in the energy sector. And of course, it's finance. Finance, it's there. We are putting up a lot of Repower EU and Next Generation EU and hundreds of billions, but the stakeholder, the awareness and the capacity is not there to absorb in this new, and people go in the old known ways of material updates of buildings rather than smartness of the buildings. So that's one sector. The other one is even more powerful. Our economy today, the growth of our economy is, it's one-to-one congruent. It's just equivalent to resource consumption. If you want GDP growth, that means more things will have to be mined, more things will have to be produced, and more things will have to be wasted. That means the emissions behind mining production and the pollution and the water, pollution and air pollution and soil pollution behind that is tremendous. What digitalization can do is to get away from the quantity-driven profits of the business that is running the world today. More things I sell, more money I make. And that is true for cars, which are 92% of the time parked, 3% in traffic jam. So the utility of 1.5 ton to 2 tons of steel and electronics and batteries and lithium, rare earths material, 2 tons of these valuable materials, 95% are not used, they're just polluting somewhere. Do we really need that? Products that are designed so that you can change them every 2 years. Think of smartphones. There are products like agricultural products that you make money by making agricultural sector convinced that they need more pesticides, herbicides, fertilizer every year, instead of changing the business model to provide services. That's where digital can do, and without digital, that's not possible because the manufacturers and the businesses need to have what I call situational awareness of what is happening with their cars that they are leasing, or the field that they are protecting, or this type of a product that they will get back to refurbish and to remanufacture. That is needed. For that, what we need is complete change of, digitization of supply chains. We need tools like the ones that we announced in Europe Digital Product Passport, where we have the data about the products from the mining, from the materials in them, from the specs, from the reparability manuals, all the way to end-of-life handling, all data to be given to those that need to know it. It doesn't need to be always open source, open to everybody, to be shared, to enable new type of businesses, to save natural resource. Natural resource is emissions, pollution, biodiversity loss. It's as simple as that. Cannot hear you.
Thank you, Ilyas. Now I'm moving to the next panelists, the panelists that are on site, maybe starting from this side of the podium. Kauru, what are your thoughts on these 7 key areas that have been identified? Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Massamba. So I'm Kauru Inoue. I'm director of the Global Enabling Sustainability Initiative. It's an association that fully focuses on sustainability and digital, and we're based in Brussels, Belgium. And we're really proud to have some of the most ambitious ICT companies that we have today. So one of the questions that I really wanted to talk about is, well, what you mentioned. So what is hindering this bridge between digital and green? Really, I have a few main points, but the first is that what we've found, at least from the ICT sector and from the companies that we've been working with, is that there really is this disconnect between digital and climate action. It seems as though those that are working in climate have one understanding of digital, and then those that are working in digital have a very different understanding of what it means to be, to take climate action. And so we're really hoping that, at least for Jussie, that we can be that bridge as as an international, global-oriented platform. The other thing as well is that there is a lot of noise when it comes to things like standards and frameworks. If you are a digital company, who do you really listen to? There's CDPs, there's SASBs, there's all these different acronyms that I wish I could name and fully understand, but companies are overwhelmed. There's a huge human resource issue. There's only sometimes for sustainability departments, 1 or 2 folks that are fully engaged in that work. And then of course, if you're a larger company, you may have at least 3 to 4 more standards that you need to meet. And a lot of the times that we've seen, companies will need to backtrack. So they'll deploy all these technologies, which is great, but then they'll do their carbon accounting later. So this is some of the things that we've been really finding is what it makes things difficult for companies to be more active in the climate action sense and to really be more sustainable. On the flip side, and it really isn't all that black and gray, partnerships really are key to making sure that there is that bridge between green and climate action. For us at Jussie, we have been really proud, as I said, to have our a global membership. As an example, in September of this year, ITU had published the L1333 standard, which is looking at energy efficiency or network energy efficiency performance, or for those of you in the know, NCIE. And this was supported by member companies Huawei and also our member Telecom Italia. So this is one of the ways that having a global platform like ITU is really important in making sure that standards are made and frameworks are a bit more globally oriented. In addition to that, and I think speaking from the Jussie perspective, another way that we have been very much involved is through initiatives. So we're really proud to say that Jussie is a founding partner of the Circular Electronics Partnership, or CEP. Elias mentioned earlier this topic of circular economy. It is one of the main topics that companies should be looking at today, and not just companies, actually any organization, and all of us as a society should be looking at. So the work of the CEP is really making sure that we have a vision and a practical roadmap for circular electronics by 2030. In our roadmap, and you can go online, there's sets of guidance and steps that companies can do across different time periods. So 2030, 2023, 2027, and 2030. So that way companies are able to take those incremental steps across what we call 6 pathways to make sure that you are in line as best as you can for what you currently can do in terms of circular electronics. So again, there's lots of different ways for, in this case, solution and product owners to be more involved, but that requires a lot of involvement and partnerships of non-corporate entities.
Thank you, Kaoro, for sharing all this possible solution, learning, cross-fertilization between climate expert and ICT expert, partnership, development of standards, circular electronic, all these different leverage points that can be used to make the green digital transition happen. Now I will move to the next speaker. There is Pamlin. Can you share with us your reflection on these topics?
Thank you very much, Massamba. And today I'm sitting here not as the Executive Director of Mission Innovation's Net Zero Initiative, but as the Head of Strategy for Digital with Purpose. And I would like to, I think the 7 questions you have, there are 3 there that I think is absolutely key. One is green in relation to ICT. The other one is social in relation to ICT and global equity. And those 2 then link up to the transformative role of ICT. Because I think we need to take a step back sometimes and realize that digital solutions might be or most probably is the most powerful tool humans have ever created. More powerful than fire, more powerful than wheel or an internal engine that really shapes society. Because these things made us faster, stronger, possible to reach longer. But digital solutions affect the way we think, the way we understand the world, and can fundamentally reshape our values. And that's why it's so important. It doesn't just affect the technology system, it also affects the way we look at ourselves. And currently that's where ICT has its biggest problem, because it's turning us into crazy consumers. The way internet works, when you go out there, you're treated as a consumer. Ads are being bombarded. Many of the largest ICT companies are not treating people as customers, but as products to be sold to someone else to push things. Companies that are selling products, like many ICT companies belonging to Jesse, are of another kind that actually try to give people something. And I think that's a first distinction that we need to meet and understand. There's very different ways of approaching in the digital world. And I would like to distinguish between three challenges we have, and that we see many policymakers making a fundamental mistake because they're thinking simplistic and short term. What they're trying to do is fix broken systems. So basically we use ICT to make more cost-efficient and environmental-friendly ways of extracting fossil fuel. So of course ICT can be used everywhere, but a lot of that is just making broken old system less bad on the margin, but overall even worse. So we optimize current transportation system, we optimize current ICT systems, we optimize current energy systems. But as the International Energy Agency said here yesterday, we are listening to the old stakeholders way too much and try to optimize large-scale centralized energy systems while we have a new globally sustainable energy system happening at the parallel. But that is where it's hard also for the ICT industry, because the big customers are still the big old companies. In the same way as the International Energy Agency said that we need to listen to the new solutions. We also need to make more friends and collaborations with the new stakeholders, as Kara was saying. So that's also where I think, and the most problem is actually where we have now, is optimizing what looks good in the short term. So we're optimizing the current transportation system, as OECD has said, is really stupid, or we help by recycling fast fashion or fast food, etc. But we're not looking with ICT is really excellent. As Massamba was saying, when it really challenges what do we need? If we use the current ICT strategies many governments are using, we would sit with very efficient fossil-free typewriters, because we would use ICT with the old technology and we would not ask about the new things. Or we would have very good CD records instead of streaming of music. So we really need to ask, and I think what we should put in the focus is always human needs. I don't care about the energy efficiency of the global web. I want to know if we can create a society where the human needs are met in a way where 11 billion people can live flourishing lives. And only ICT can ensure that. The current resource-efficient economy is not capable of lifting people out of poverty. And this is the problem with the West. West is setting the standard for ICT, and West is trying to optimize old systems. That's why I'm very happy also that Huawei and many companies from India and Africa is stepping up to the stage. Because for them, it's clear that we need to bring people out of poverty also, not just optimizing old system. So my last word is that we need to shift the focus from reducing emissions to avoiding emissions, because most people are moving forward, needs to be lifted out of poverty, and it should be as important to help a farmer in China to live a better life as helping a rich, affluent person in the West to improve their living. But today we only look at the West because we reduce emissions, and we don't look at the excellent work that is doing in the global South, because avoiding emissions is not being given enough attention. Thank you.
Dennis, very important point. Digital is powerful because they can affect thought and value. Digital should not be used to fix broken system, but it should be rather used, or at least complement that with the support to the development of alternative value chain that can complement current value chain. And finally, it's not just about mitigation and emission reduction. This is also about development, clean development, and avoided emission, because this is what is most relevant to the South, to the global South particularly. Now I will turn to the next speaker, Mr. Ibrahim al-Dukheiri.
Yes.
Please introduce yourself and then share with us your thought on this different topic.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Ibrahim al-Dukheiri. I am the Director General of the Arab Organization for Agricultural Development. My take on this is, in fact, I will not probably, unfortunately, go away from optimization, but at least very clear to us in the ag sector, in the agricultural sector, which is as part of the different economic sectors, has a completely different nature, specifically in our context. In when I said Arab Organization for Agricultural Development, that I mean the Arab region and the African region, with the level of development that's known to all of you. So when we start talking about ICT, in fact, we're looking for elements of efficiency in the ag sector. And the discussion at the sector, at this level, it's about digital transformation. You know, in an area, a wide area, you have farmers scattered all over the place, and you want to reach them out. With ICT, there is a big challenge in here. So the discussion at this moment is still on the digital transformation, what it takes to help getting all those farmers scattered all over the place to be part and parcel of this network that supports ICT. So issues of ecosystems will come in place. The whole range of policies that are conducive to support the transformation of the sector, building or capitalizing on ICT technologies. Issues of governance, and I alluded a little bit to the social part of this ICT, which you alluded to, is still a critical question that we need to deal with. But the whole range of governance setup that promotes ICT in the agricultural sector is very much the issue to be spoken. Issues of coverage. If you talk of cities, the city is maximum 50 kilos by 50 kilos. But now we are talking of thousands and thousands of kilos all directions, and you want to reach them. The issue of infrastructure comes into play. To get into that level, the cost component is very critical. And we know the farming business is not as competitive and profitable as other sectors. So there is a challenge in there, and that needs also to be addressed. So policies, governance setup, coverage, issues of cost. We probably need piloting to enhance accessibility and to demonstrate what works, what doesn't work. If we come to speed up the implementation of, or at least this upscaling of ICTs, then issues of, again, costs and essentially the policies that support this uptaking is very critical. The most important arrangement that we can think of, and it's often spoken when the parties around the agricultural sector come together, is usually partnerships. What sort of partnerships are we talking about to make sure that this upscaling of ICT is taking place? And here we are talking about technical partnerships with credible institutions. We are talking about resource partnerships. We are talking about advocacy partnerships, because you need to change the context, the ecosystem, the whole range of ecosystem. You need to advocate and lobby for some critical changes that will paves the ground for speeding up of the transformation. And so the partnership on one side, and we need some kind of platforms that brings us together. So those technology developers, and then the consumers at this level is the farmers. There is this link here that needs to be somehow bridged. So platforms and initiatives from those technology developers would be something to capitalize on that would definitely help the upscaling. So when we talk of ICT technologies in the ag sector, those are the issues that we need to focus on, and probably what I stated at the last, which is the partnerships, platforms, and initiatives, would probably be the way to go to make sure that that upscaling is taking place. So thank you.
Thank you. A very interesting perspective for digital technology and ICT to support the core human need of nutrition and health at scale. There are several challenges that need to be addressed, acting on different leverage points. One is policy, that's very important, and other issues that need to be addressed are coverage, cost, and also advocating. And what is really interesting here is that the advocating, lobbying, partnership, and platform need to be holistic. We need to address all the different points. So thank you for your intervention on how the use of ICT can be upscaled to support a fundamental core human need, which is nutrition and health. Now let's move to our next speaker. So Paolo, we will be very eager to know what are your perspectives on this different topic that was mentioned at the beginning. You have the floor.
Thank you, Massamba. I am Paolo Gemma. I am a representative of ITUT. ITUT is a United Nations agency working on standardization for ICT, and on this group I am the chairman of Working Party 2 of Study Group 5, dealing with circular economy, environmental efficiency, etc., and climate change, all the topic regarding climate, all what we are discussing now. If we look at what we are making as ITUT, ITUT is more than 10 years that is writing standard on energy efficiency, of assessment of technology, is covering a lot of what we have heard before, because one of the topics that we write standard on KPI for equipment, for network, as mentioned before by Karu, but also on standard on common solution to avoid emission, to have a more better solution, because when we think to apply new solution in a new country, or it's necessary to think on what we are applying before that we design, before that we apply, because after that we have developed, we can make just a sum of a result and we are not able to change nothing. So this is the reason why we write a standard like the L1333 that is able to give an idea on which is the emission of a network and which should be the evolution of a network. We wrote standard for a KPI for a circular equipment to check if the equipment can be circular. That is the L1023, and is a tool for design equipment. So to check if when people design equipment, how much is circular, how much is respond to the circular economy concept. We have developed a standard for the assessment of a network or a good to see which is the GHG emission. It is the L1410. That is a very complicated standard in reality. It's hard to apply that. But as to answer to one of the questions of Massamba, is we need a rigorous standard sometime, because if we need to make a reporting of what is the emission of a product or a service or a network, we need a real rigorous standard. But we need also a simplified, a more smart standard, That is something that we are developing now because we think that we need to give a tool, that could be a standard, could be an online tool, to help people, especially the small industry, the SME industry, to check if what they are designing, if the architecture that they think to apply is okay or not from an environmental point of view, just to avoid the emission. And this is what we are working now. We hope to work with more people, a lot of people. In my organization, we have operator, we have industry, we have administration, we have university that we call academy. And one of the challenges is to put all together and to try to find a compromise between different positions. This is a very big challenge to write a standard. We hope we try to solve a lot of questions, discussion, and one of the last standards that we develop is what we call enablement effort. We wrote a standard that is on the final approval phase, that is the L14080. That is the first standard that tries to calculate which is the impact of ICT in other sectors, how ICT can reduce the emission of other sectors. And this is a very important point to have a base of discussion on this, because if you look inside of Intel, you can find a completely different number for 24% to 70%, depending on what you want. And this is very important to have a common understanding. And just a little point to the previous speaker. In ITT, we are working in a focus group, an open group, just dedicated to artificial intelligence application to agriculture. Because one of the scope of ITT is not only to write standard on how to measure something, but also to share experience. And the scope of the focus group is just to share experience on application of artificial intelligence or ICT to agriculture sector, to sharing experience and different stakeholders that is working maybe in one country to share which is the best experience between them, to give a possibility to other people, to other countries to apply a good solution that was implemented in one country.
So just one follow-up question before you give the micro to the next speaker. This morning we realized that it was quite complex to develop standard when it comes to measuring the climate contribution of an enabling entity. And sometimes you need to do a lot of simplification, and at the end of the day, this is no more relevant because it will no more reflect the reality. How one can address this kind of trade-off between being relevant and being complex?
The idea that we have, you are completely true, is some standards are very complex to write, and this is something that we realize that, and we are trying to work to create a simplified approach on this. Hello? Okay, this can help a lot, especially the developer and on small industry, to look on which should be the future, the impact of what they are developing. This could be made by a standard that defines a method, by some tool that could be available online that simplify a lot on this. This should be not a rigorous standard. We need to distinguish between a rigorous standard that can be used for reporting, for official reporting, from a standard that can give you, I don't know, 80% correct answer on which should be the impact of what you are working. This is something that is more needed for people, not a rigorous standard. Because rigorous standard, applying a rigorous standard like our L1410 or the ISO standard, you need have a very big team that use that. A lot of data that are not available publicly. Have a simple tool But as at you, we can standardize the formula, standardize something, and maybe we need help of other stakeholders that implement a simple tool online, can help a lot of people to have an idea of what they are making.
Thank you, Paolo. Let's then move to our next speaker, Mr. Tareq. So, what are your perspective on these 7 issues that have been raised at the beginning of the session?
Thank you, Massamba, and it's really a pleasure to be here with you. I know sometimes it's very difficult to be here in the what's called the organized chaos and the noise. But I work for UNIDO, the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, and I run the team that is looking at decarbonization and sustainable energy. And the narrative and the linkages with ICT in our work has 2 dimensions. I will come to them in a minute, but I think I want to go also historically, because the narrative on the role of ICT in the green transition and is not a new one. We've been talking about this almost 30 years. And I think Dennis touched the right point in saying that historically we've been looking at ICT as an enabler of consumers, and as an enabler for consumers to make choices on greener products, for example. I remember in my research community that was in the mid-90s, we were looking at ICT to enable teleworking and distance working to reduce the footprint from travel and transport. It took us about 25 years, and it took only a pandemic to get us there to scale up that approach. So 25 years of discussion, we didn't get probably very little in that progress, and only a pandemic and a forced lockdown changed behavior, forced us to change behavior. But I think what we have seen in the last 5 years is a different dynamics that is built on the infrastructure that ICT enables, and the convergence of digital solutions and data and big data and analytics to actually change perspective that ICT is an entry point or digital solutions for rethinking innovation and the delivery of innovative solutions that meet the needs of people and also deliver climate actions on the ground. And we noticed that at least in UNIDO, particularly in the energy access space. If you remember, I don't know, for those active in the energy access, we worked for 15 years to deliver energy services to it's called the energy services for the last mile, for those that really do not have the affordability to pay for premium electricity as we have in Europe and elsewhere. And there, it was very difficult to find business models that can deliver affordable energy to consumers. Only in the last 5 years with digital innovations that we start to see business models that combine digital thinking, digital innovations to deliver affordable electricity to households or to businesses in remote areas. And so that has actually transformed the offering, and we see most of this coming actually from the global south, and I have to concur with Denise. So we are looking at the confluence or the convergence of digital solutions with energy, with climate adaptations to deliver on these, to deliver what I call a package of services that meets needs from basic needs to other aspects of making sure that it is climate neutral or climate impact. So that's one dimension I think has changed the narrative, and we need to pick on this. We run a huge accelerator on energy services, and when we look at the cohort or participant of these entrepreneurs in these accelerators, over 60 to 70% of the business the delivery of the business value is actually linked to some sort of a digital approach to delivering these. So that's an amazing gateway for innovation, entrepreneurship, to deliver products, services in a low carbon, sustainable way, but also to reconfigure the business models around them. The second dimension, I think, is also where we as UNIDO very, very active on, is decarbonization of industry. How do we get the industry to transition from the infrastructure, the model that is today, to a net zero by 2050? And one aspect of this, for example, if we want to promote a green steel or green cement as a commodity, the only way we can get the market to pick on this is through better understanding of the embedded carbon on these commodities and how to get markets to, in a low transaction cost way, to access these commodities. And so part of that solution is entirely built on data, traceability, and open source communication between production to market. So between manufacturing, input of raw materials to end users, all that traceability can be delivered through ICTs based on digital solutions that can facilitate transition of industry. So when we think about a green commodity markets, we're talking about billions of dollars of market, and without ICT and digital solutions to enable these markets, we would not get there. So these are the two nuggets I wanted to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tareq. One point that was very important for me is the comparison that you have made, saying that we have spent more than 20 years trying to use digital technology to address the need for mobility, and we were not successful. And after with the COVID crisis, we very quickly find solution. So it confirms the view that says that necessity is the key driver of innovation, and maybe the best way to create this situation of creative tension is to always set goal and objective based on what is needed and not what is possible. And the gap between the two could be then the driver for innovation. One aspect I would like to maybe further put emphasis on is the aspect of collaboration. And I would like to ask you, Philippe, to maybe a little bit elaborate on how collaboration can help upscale digital technology, ICT sector, and why this aspect of collaboration is really important.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. I learned today a lot from different speakers, and we share the common philosophy and the common target. We will do the bridge between the tech and the green. But how to make it happen? I think the collaboration, as I said, is one of the fundamental with education. But I would like to emphasize for the collaboration is the way, maybe the PPP way, the public and the private partnership. Why? This is not a business mindset. This is really the deploying the one policy. Because without the support from the government, with a clear policy, friendly to the environment protection, in the field cannot be happen. So I think at this level, we should do more to discuss with the government, with the policy maker, and have the new mindset, because ICT is a new technology and a new way to change the way of producing and our daily life. This is a new, as one of the speakers said during this panel. So the new way, we should have the new mindset and the new model to be adapted. So this is very important. And this, they can emphasize and concentrate at the political level, economic level, social level, and have all the effort and leverage the priority for our ICT, because this is the most efficient tool will change our life. This is most efficient tool. Never happened in human history, and we should catch it up. And the second one is in the private sector. Private sector, I would like to emphasize the collaboration for three words. The first is open. We should have the open mind really to participate for the definition of the standard and the dialogue with our different partners. For example, for the Huawei, why we are so proactively to be here and to show our know-how, our knowledges in this ICT domain for the fundamental green tech, because this is our passion. We deeply believe this can change the life of everyone. This is the benefit for the whole society. So the openness is very important. Not only me, not only our company, for everyone. The second one is inclusive, because this ICT, we said, this is a new technology, can make everyone have the easy access to the technology to change their life. So for our side, we should, at the beginning of the definition of the standard of the new technology, we should use this inclusive mindset to have the equal chance for everyone, for every area. For example, to extend the coverage for the rural area, for the people do not have the right to the access to the internet. And the last one, I think, is the execution. Because if we want concretely make this happen in our near future, we should execute with a clear target, with a clear programs, and the clear objective shared within all the partner stakeholders. So while we at the different levels, for example, for the regulation, we dialogue a lot with different governments. We share proactively execution, and for the fundamental level, we already deployed different programs to educate, to cultivate the future talent in the country with concrete programs. And for the platform side and for the service level, we have a different cooperation with our partners. So here, I would like to emphasize we are open to work with our partners and to accelerate this digital transformation. The target is really bring the benefit to the whole society. Yeah, thank you all. I would like to conclude by this, Doctor.
Thank you so much. Great words, openness, learning from each other, which is what I will call societal learning, where we can undertake radical collaboration and reinvent new pattern of working together, inclusiveness and execution. Now I would like, at this last part of our session, to invite all of you to reflect on what you have heard from the other panelists. And the first, I will start with those that are virtual. We do not have a lot of time, so it should be very short. Maybe starting with Ilyas. You are muted, Ilyas.
I don't know if the system, okay. So thank you very much. I would very much like to resonate what Dennis said about the transformative power, and that digitalization should not be used to make the existing methods more efficient. Like, let's make the cars to be smart, and let's make the cars to avoid traffic jam, let's make the cars to be whatever, but let's make mobility services to people to address their mobility needs with less cars. Okay, so let's go one step higher because of these natural resources I talk about. A very concrete example to the Mr. Ibrahimi, I don't know if I said the name right, about the agriculture. A very concrete example. One way that precision farming is done today is to flood the farmers with gadgets. To say, you have to buy IoT to measure the humidity and the nitrogen absorption of the earth. You need to buy drones to monitor and spray. You need to buy subscription if you have a big field to the Copernicus or some kind of satellite monitoring. You need meteorological station and the laptop to make sure that you understand this and that. They don't have capacity. They don't have skills. They don't have money for that. One way to talk about precision farming is to waste and to create the e-waste of tomorrow, selling gadgets that will be in few years completely unusable and piling as waste somewhere. Another way to look at this, more transformative, is to say all those people that are selling agricultural products to become as service companies. So they are incentivized to give a service to the farmers, and they will apply only, they will have to become digital companies, so they will have their own drones and IoTs and this, and with the guidance and with cooperation with the farmer, co-owning the data, of course, they would then spend only the necessary agricultural products because it's a cost to them. So they will spend the minimum number of fertilizers, pesticides and herbicides because they will get fixed amount per hectare, and they will try to minimize the agricultural product. But to make sure that they keep the quality and health of the plants, they will need a lot of digitalization. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilyas.
If I may, I'm sorry about this, I forget, but what we don't measure, we don't get. And that allow me to mention that there is a Green Digital Coalition that we have put together, and we invite all the international partners to join. We are measuring based on real life data what is the impact of digitalization, because we hear a lot of potential. We have a nice narratives and many reports how digitalization will make the world greener and nicer, but those are just non-realized potentials. We need to measure exactly what we're doing and how to restrict the use, design and governance of ICT to make the world, to give benefits on environment, social issues and economic issues.
Thank you, Ilyas. So now I will give the floor to Nompilo for your last word in 1 minute, please.
Thank you so much. I'll try my best. I think there's been quite a lot of reflection points that our colleagues have shared with us today. For us at MTN, like we've mentioned before, it's very important. So I'm going to represent Africa as a continent, that we do not leave anybody behind in this journey of transformation and making sure that the continent remains climate resilient. So at MTN, we have different strategies. Of course, we've committed to net zero by 2040. We have different strategies of how we want to do this, but I just wanted to reflect on something that Mr. Ibrahim mentioned around agriculture. So GSMA report recently mentions that about 780 million people in the continent Africa are not connected today. This means there's a lot of people that don't have digital inclusion, they cannot access health, education, etc., which is something that we really saw clearly with the pandemic, that children were staying at home while other kids were at school during COVID-19. So the point that one of the panelists mentioned around digital inclusion being an enabler going forward and not being just one of those tools where we're going to create access to products and people to buy more stuff. We really need to look at how we develop proper solutions around climate change. I'll make an example. In the country that I'm sitting at now, in South Africa, we have floods. We have seen cities really being submerged in floods, but we always have to reflect on what solutions can ICT create as an opportunity to make sure that when those things are happening, we have a way to respond in a way that we can scale across the continent. And I will keep on talking about research, because up until we have done proper research around these issues, we are responding per area and per country. We're not scaling fast enough, while the climate issue is really a reality in our societies, especially in the continent of Africa. Another point I wanted to mention lastly is that we as MTN have focused a lot on coverage. We have a very aggressive strategy around rural and network coverage across markets and across rural communities particularly. And what we've observed is this thing of like, and this is something that all panelists have actually come up with, and they've mentioned in many times, that connectivity and digital inclusion goes hand in hand with energy. So we partner a lot with partners like Huawei, etc., in terms of finding solutions for rural communities to be covered and to be connected. But we still need energy. Those communities, they still don't have electricity. The list is long of the things that they cannot access. So the issue of partnerships will always remain relevant. We need to come up with big scalable projects on how to make sure that ICT is really an enabler for communities that are not to be left behind throughout this journey, and make sure that they have solar panels to power these base stations, because 780 million people that are not connected is a very big number for us to sit and pretend like the world has really moved forward. So those were the only reflection points I got from the panelists today, and I hope we could have more opportunities to collaborate going forward.
Thank you, Nompilo. Thank you, Nompilo. Now I will turn to Willem, but really 1 minute, because we are at the end of our session.
Thanks very much. So I want to say a few words about agriculture as well. It's an important part of the whole energy transition, consumes an enormous amount of energy. And the application of digital in agriculture as it is done today, I think is very much what Ilyas was saying. So not only are there gadgets put into the market, but also the large suppliers are building a digital platform on top of their infrastructure, and that will lead to a bit comparable situation that you see in the platform world, in the digital world itself. You get monopolies of owners of data, and it's all about larger scale driving up and globalization. Well, that's exactly not what we need. What we need is deploying digital technology to bring things local to local. And that means in many countries to bring the production cost of food down. And digital technologies can help a lot to do that, to bring the condition, not only to bring the cost down, but also to have a fairer distribution of the receipts out of the whole chain, which are now very much at the upper end of the chain, and the farmers are not really getting their deal of what one should have. And digital technology can be used to change those business models, but also to drive the cost efficiency. So that's one thing. A final remark on what was said is that people working on climate and people working on digital very often are working in separate silos and not always connected well enough. I could not agree more. One of the reasons, of course, why the challenge that I was presenting briefly during my presentation is a collaboration between our sister organization EIT Climate Kick and EIT Digital, because indeed to really address the true problems and not to work around it and push the technology or what have you, you need an intense collaboration between those two disciplines.
Thank you, Willem. This is well received. The Global Innovation Hub has the purpose of being bridge between organization and between network. Of course, we'll try to do our best to make the connection between Climate Kick and EIT Digital. So now I will turn to the panelists in the room. I will not give the floor to everybody. I will just ask whether any of you would like to add something before I close. So first, Dennis.
Thanks. I just wanted to really emphasize, and I think we need to walk away here with two things. One is, what is the actual goal? If you lose focus of the goal, we will do a lot of different things. And I think we need to establish that we need to be resource efficient enough for 11 billion people to live flourishing. If everything we do is through that lens, we will see digital everywhere, because only digital solution can be so resource efficient. And that takes me back to standards. Standards today is a huge part of the problem, because standard thinking is incremental improvement in existing systems. Existing stakeholders are dominating. So there's a huge problem with today's standard is that they are not allowing for the innovation that is needed. And also because they focus on reliable number to the extreme instead of valid numbers. So you look at optimizing old system instead of giving the new solutions. And that's where I think it's very good that ITU and others are really trying to explore this with avoided emissions and scale of things, because we've really seen that why are you using that? Many people want to use avoided emissions to claim or have risk approaches, not to use for business development. So we also need to ask, when standards are being developed, is that from a risk perspective and PR perspective, or is it from a business development and innovation perspective? And today standards are being dominated by risk people and PR people, not really the innovation people, unfortunately in most cases. So that's my final words. But I'm so happy that much of the new standards are actually moving in this new direction, and that ITU and others at the forefront, especially in the digital fields, are recognizing these challenges.
Thank you, Denise. And then you want to, Ibrahim and then Tareq.
Well, thank you. I think just to recap what I've said, there is an urgent need to have this ICT technologies uptaken and upscaled significantly in the ag sector, especially in the developing countries, with the characteristics that I talked about, the nature of the ag sector. So what I am calling for is this issue of platforms, initiatives, partnerships. It's very important to upscale and speed up the implementation, or at least the uptake of ICT technologies, and it should not be looked at as this is an evolutionary process. It has to tackle or to tap into the revolutionary part of it, and it is required from both the private sector and the public sector because of the nature of the agricultural sector. So we need to do some extraordinary steps to make it happen. Thank you.
No, thank you, Ibrahim. And I think this is a very strong message for initiative like the UN Climate Change Global Innovation Hub, because this is one of the things that we are also trying to promote with our digital platform. Tareq?
This one? Yeah, okay. Yeah, no. I just wanted to correct it, an opinion or a view that is from my fellow panelists, where they were dismissing the role of efficiency. I have to admit, no, it's very essential. Because if we look at all the models and the scenarios we have to get to net zero by 2050, efficiency in the manufacturing sector is primarily essential, and ICT and digital technologies is one way to accelerate efficiency. It's the least cost option. If you're going to deliver, Africa needs cement and steel and fertilizers to develop, and most of that consumption is going to happen there. So if you're going to tell them no, forget about efficiency, it's not the way to go. We have to be realistic, and we have to see how we can deliver these commodities in net zero carbon emissions, and efficiency will be so essential to that journey.
Efficiency is part of the toolbox. Well noted. One minute.
Yes, efficiency is a key point to go to net zero. This is why we started a lot of years ago to work on efficiency, to define what is efficiency, because it's a very, very important point. And standard is a compromise, I said before, from stakeholder. To be innovative, we need innovative people in standard organization. Please come with us.
Thank you. And Kauru?
Thank you. I'll go for 30 seconds. Just really quickly, for private companies, the critical thing is to really look for the right partner. And what we've found is the right partner is usually the partners that your competitors are probably already working with. For us at Jesse, there's no competition, because sustainability needs to be, it's not one company, it's not one department, it's all throughout. So that's just something to remind folks that look to your competitors. It may be the case that they're pretty much having the same issues as you are as well.
Thank you. And finally, the last word, Philippe.
I will be very short, but be very focused. As Huawei is one of the leader in this domain, this is our passion. So we feel this is not the economic responsibility, but also the social responsibility from our side. And we engaged for this target, and we will keep engaging with the collaboration with all the stakeholders. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And now I would like to invite the audience to join me with a round of applause for our excellent panelists.